Welcome, everyone. I am so excited for this conversation. You have no idea. I am talking to Andrew Fischer, the co-founder of Somatic Breathwork, which is actually the specific form of breathwork that I am trained in. I just went through your Somatic Breathwork training back in December. Absolutely fell in love with, well, I've been in love with Somatic Breathwork for a year now. It took me a while to kind of pull the trigger and sign up, but absolutely fell in love with you and the team and breathwork in general. And so I am so excited to have this conversation with you. We're going to be chatting about breathwork. We're going to talk a little bit about human design as always. So as always, I love to kind of turn the reins over to my guests to introduce themselves because I think there's so many different ways that we can describe ourselves and answer the question, who am I? So whatever you would like to share, Mr. Fischer, who is Andrew? And share your little intro.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's probably the toughest question you probably start off with. And so I
Yeah.
guess that gets easier from there on out. Talking about yourself is always an interesting skill set. But I do believe that when you know what you want to bring to the world, it becomes a lot easier. And for
Mm,
me, it's not as much about who I am and who I want to be, as much as it is about the virtues that I want to embody and am questioning whether or not I'm actually working towards that in my
mm,
relationship, in my work. And is what I'm building me and in a direction that I can be proud of.
mm.
I think that this isn't really answering the question. It's just a different way to answer the question is
Love
I
it.
used to want to be like a Tiger Woods or an athlete. I really resonated with like using my body and locomotion and having that be my art form. And as I've gotten older, I've gotten softer and I've
Mm,
gotten more inward. I lived very externally for the first portion of my life. And now I'm living very internally,
mm,
very intentionally. And so, whereas it might have been like Tiger Woods is who I look forward to being, now I look forward to being someone like Mr. Rogers. I've teased a little bit about that, but that's a man who showed up in service to others to make the world better than he found it. And so
mm,
that's really a trademark for me. Am
mm,
I moving intentionally enough into a place where someone feels that I'm really there with them and that I care for them and that ultimately I have a desire to impact and better the world, even if it's just one person or a small like little tweak that makes a
mhm,
difference in everything. So it's really not necessarily who I am. Sure, there's titles, there's
mhm,
companies. I've had a multitude of them. I'm a CEO of a current company called Somatic Breathwork right now. But these are titles, and these can be stripped, and these can
mhm,
be removed from you, and your identity cannot be tied to them. At some point in time, I will need to step down, as someone else can fill this role in just a much more um, just expressive way and really understanding that knowing when it's time to step away is kind of like
mhm.
one of the greatest art skills you can have, knowing when it's time to leave. So,
Yeah. Thank
so
you
it's more
for sharing it.
like, yeah,
Y-
of course.
Yeah, it is. It's more, I mean, I knew that you would have a creative answer to this, and that's, you're right. It's a tough question. That's why I start with it.
Oh,
But
good.
not being tied to your titles because we're so conditioned to introduce ourselves to what's the word? Label ourselves with these titles and put ourselves in all of these boxes, which we kind
Yeah.
of there's a benefit to that and there's nothing wrong with that, but
Mhm.
also having that detachment from your title because it's so temporary and we step into so many different boxes throughout our lives that it's really interesting to look at, like, who am I outside of CEO, who am I outside of son or
Yeah.
friend or brother or
Uh,
coworker.
yeah.
um
Yeah. These are the things that take up the time and space inside our head. It's really like when we
yeah.
talk about an identity, you're basically saying this is what I think about the most. This is what
Mm-hmm.
I'm tithing. because are you really a father always? Well, not really. Come home and you're like your father to your children when you're with them, but you're probably always thinking about that, whether that's
Mm.
guilt or want to buy them a gift. They're always there, just running in the background. So you're kind of always a father, and so I can see why that can just lead to your identity. Your identity is really what you think about. So yeah,
I love it.
I'm the CEO and I think about the CEO all the time, so I can identify with it. But at the
Yeah.
same time, like I have to let go of that. I have to curate enough space for my own creativity, my own expression, my own
Hmm.
relationship. Can't just be talking and thinking about somatic my entire
Hmm.
life. Although that is how you build a business, it's I think it would be an empty life if you
Hmm.
didn't head with other things of value.
Yeah. I mean, you and I were just talking about before we hit record. I was sharing that I just got back from vacation, and this is the first vacation in a while that I haven't worked on vacation. And you're like, oh, are you a little bit of a workaholic? And we were talking about Enneagrams, if you want to label it like Enneagram 3, they tend to tie a lot of their purpose with their work. And I certainly do that. Um, but that has definitely been something talking about identity that like I've tried to challenge, and it doesn't mean that I'm perfect at it and that I never do it, but tried to challenge like who am I outside of my business, and can my business live on, be sustained for a week without me putting all of this work into it, without seeing my clients, without creating all of the content. And again, like who am I outside of my work? What other roles, what other titles can I step into? When I was on vacation, it was friend, it was family member, it was sister, it was auntie, it was vacationer. So not being tied to one thing all the time, I think is really a cool thing with talking about purpose. But
Sure.
anyway, I'm curious. I really want to get into talking about breath work. I would
Okay.
love for people who don't know you. I would say the majority of my listeners are not somatic breath workers.
Oh,
And since this is the beginning of my somatic breathwork journey, being a practitioner, not even 6 months yet, um, I would love a little background on you. I know a little bit of it, that you have not always been this somatic breath worker, and you've lived a whole nother life. So whatever you feel willing to share, what kind of led you to breath work, and what called you to co-found this company with Stephen
oh,
Jaggers?
yeah, thank you for that.
Mm,
Ultimately, yeah, many lives. Your ability to
mm,
be able to let go will determine your aptitude in your life. Like, can you really reset your life? Do you
hmm,
have the courage to actually let go of everything, to sell everything, to build a new adaptive pattern for yourself in your life? Especially if you're not happy with the current circumstance. And in this particular case, I spent a lot of time, as I mentioned earlier, in an external type of tutoring. The world, I learned from the world externally. I
okay.
traveled a tremendous amount. I used athletics. Like I, I used a lot of movement. I guess international travel is movement as well. So
Hmm.
a big portion of my life was just external. So that being said, it would make sense that the latter portion of my life is more internal. And
Mm,
I was living very externally, very superficially is just a really good word, because I
okay.
think there's a lot of value in superficialism as well. But I I ultimately was in a relationship. um, it didn't work out for a number of reasons, and it caused me to really go introspective, like
Mm,
beyond where I've ever gone before, into a depths I've never really known. Essentially, I was working my way through a nervous breakdown,
mm,
and it is interesting to to see how life is unfolded, but ultimately, I just wanted to be back to my baseline. I wanted to
mm,
feel like I could get back to the state where I was regulated.
mm,
And I happened to take a breath work session with Stephen Jaggers. So it's interesting. I am one of those, was a client first,
Mm.
became an owner of something. It caused me to self-reflect inwardly. It gave me space and time in which I've never really had time to do that. I've been a hustle and a grinder for so
Mm.
long. And so the ability to slow down
Wow.
allowed me to see and feel more of life and what it had to offer. And
Mm.
breath work gave me that chance to slow down. And with that, I've spent the majority of my life now introspectively,
Mm.
interested in healing art modalities rather than more superficial like
Mhm.
modalities like massage therapy, which
Mhm.
is what I pursued when I was, yeah, young. So
I didn't know that.
yeah, I was a like a essentially I was a performance coach on the PGA Tour, traveling the world, like in private jets, helicopters, you name it, working for like the number two player in the world. And so I got to see an immense amount of wealth. I got to see what it is to like be a part of a traveling team, like almost like a circus, each
Mhm.
trying to compete at the highest level for performance. And there's
Mm.
just no time for anything. Like you're just on a plane. A week goes by, you're in like Santa Monica. You get on another plane, you're in like Australia. Another week
Mhm.
goes by. Get on a plane, you're in Germany. You're just on a world tour. So there's no
Mm.
time to feel anything. And golf
Mm.
is a very suppressed sport. So
Okay.
it would make sense that I finally needed to just have things crumble and break so that I could rebuild myself into the man that I wanted to be. And so ultimately, I found somatic breathwork, and that's where we are today. I found something that helped me, and I wanted to share that with others. And I
Mhm.
know that it's not the one size fits all, but it could help um, many. And I
Mhm.
knew that, and I was excited to share that because that that position I was in, the lowest place in my life, was the hardest place I've ever been. And I was just
Yeah.
like, I don't want anyone. It's not that I don't want anyone to feel that. I think it's so important. I don't want anyone to get stuck there.
Yeah.
It's not a place to like live. It's just a place to visit, to feel the lows of life. And
Mm.
breathwork allowed me to fluctuate out of that. We say that like breathwork really initiates health, and health is your ability to choose feeling the lows and the highs and being able to move in and out of them like seamlessly. And
Yeah.
that's really breathwork gives you the opportunity to choose what state you want to be in rather than what state you're stuck in.
Wow. Yeah, it's interesting. We have similar situations as like my big like what am I doing with my life? Where do I really want to go? Came from, of course, the biggest low of my life, which was choosing to leave a 7 year long relationship engagement. And I've, kind of realized like this is just not it's just not working for me, and it's nothing against this person. It's just a misalignment in personalities and in the relationship, and crumbling. I was actually just having a conversation with somebody about this. Like, I vividly remember the day after the breakup, talking to my sister on the phone, and like this like dissociative, like out of body experience where I was like, my whole life just crumbled. Like the foundation of my life as I know it has been ripped out from under me. And I love that you said it's not that I don't want people to experience that, because it's such an interesting topic of conversation for me, and I would love your take on this. Um, that the most painful moments, like the moments where we feel the most broken, the most lost, the most confused, like the darkest moments in our lives are often the times, actually it's not often, it's always, we what comes from that is we're given this invitation, this opportunity to grow and to
Yeah,
expand and
yeah,
to really meet ourselves, like our true selves, without any armor on. um, but it's hard, it's really difficult to be in that place, and it's really dark to be in that place. And like you, I think, um I went through that and coming out of it, I realized how lonely it can be, and how powerful it is to have people in your tribe and on your team that can guide you and be that light when you don't feel like there's any light. And that's what led me into, launching my coaching business, and then that led me to breath work. Yeah, so I would love your take on that just topic of like the deepest, darkest pains of our lives, and why does that why why do we not wait, but why do those situations, like why are we in those situations, or where how do we get to those situations for change, and like why does it have to be that like moment of us breaking for us to finally change? Why can't we change when we are living in a little bit
Yeah.
more light and less darkness and
Yeah.
pain?
Well, I mean, like if we're living in like joy and bliss, like what is there to change? That's
Yeah.
that's the state you want to be in. That's the state you're constantly moving towards. And when you're in there, what else matters?
Yeah.
Ultimately, that's what your soul craves the most. If you could silence everything, go into a cave and like eliminate light, eliminate distractions, eliminate everything, I think you'd probably hear your heart. I think you
Mm,
probably hear your soul, because I think they speak very gently in whispers.
mm,
And if you're like really listening, it would be, hey, just how about peace? How about
mm.
slow down a little bit and let me just take in how magnificent life can be. Like we don't slow
Yeah.
down enough to even actualize it. I mean, we are slowing down every day. That's death. And
Mm,
death is this like natural process, this invention that slows us down so that our life forwardly led can catch up. And
mm.
at a certain point, when we slow down enough and our life does get to catch up, usually happens when we're in like a pain point or deep, dark time in our life. What just happened is our life caught up with us and we have
Mm.
to face the music proverbially. And
Mhm.
ultimately, and now there's an opportunity to look inward and say, okay, thank you. How do I get back to bliss and joy?
Yeah.
And so it's this seesaw balance of really like, how do you get there? Because it's constantly in flux and constantly in change. So yeah, pain can be, isn't always for everyone. Some people stay there, but it can be an incredible teacher, an
Yeah.
incredible catalyst for change. And oftentimes all of our, I mean, everyone kind of says this, but change won't happen until it's forced. And so that usually is going to be in our times of suffering.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Force change. I know Stephen talked about that in a podcast or something, but oftentimes, like how you were saying, uh wisdom, like I believe that our body speaks to us in whispers until
mhm,
it has to scream. And so it might physically show up in your body like this dull ache in your back, right, until you throw your back out and you are forced to stop. Same with pain. Like for me, I'll only speak for my life. I was living, it wasn't that I hated my life. I didn't at all. I liked my life, but I knew that I was living out of alignment, doing speech pathology, working a corporate full-time job. And that I did that for a couple years before I realized that I really needed to change something. And we got to that point of the breakup and everything, like all of the pain came. Um, and you said something interesting, because I'm not really sure how I hold this perspective, but I very much like do not stay, I don't allow myself to stay stuck, or I try to check myself if I feel like I am stuck. One of my favorite quotes is, you are not a tree, move. If you don't like where you are, move.
yeah.
So, but one of the things that you said is sometimes some people get stuck in pain and get stuck in that darkness. So I have noticed, I found breath work as an opportunity to get unstuck And I would love for you to speak on that, how breathwork has served you in your life when you have felt stuck, and what is this tool that breathwork gives us? How do we become unstuck with breathwork?
Yeah, I want to preface firstly that I think like being stuck is a part of the process as well.
Yeah.
You need to be stuck there for a little bit, and sometimes because just look to nature, it's the ultimate like guide, right? If
Hmm.
there are seasons, like there are going to be seasons within inside yourself, and
Hmm.
being stuck a lot of times, it's the wording we use, but it's really just a winter.
Yeah.
It's a winter where we're just have to like actually stay put.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a longer winter than we want it to be. Um, but that's an awesome opportunity to go inward and to
Yeah.
really feel what needs to change, right? As a
Thank
net.
you. Right. Thank you for prefacing that, because yeah, I don't want it to sound like, oh, I'm never stuck. Like I
Yeah.
think what I meant is I don't hold the perspective that I am stuck. It's that, yeah, this is shitty, this is dark, and I'm fucking walking through it right now. My life is not all light. I went through like a year and a half long winter, which was the longest winter period, inner winter, I mean, of my
Yeah.
life. Um, and there are times where I felt like I can't get myself out of this. I am stuck. And there are times where I felt, okay, this is just a winter and I'm just going to be in the winter. But anyway, continue. Thank you for bringing that up.
No worries. I think it's so good because ultimately nobody enjoys a no one, I mean, maybe we think we would love a life where it's just all joy and bliss, but
Mm.
that's not a story worth reading. It's not a story someone would make a movie about. Like every story has adversity. Every
Yeah.
story is like a hero's journey. Like we call it character development. I'm watching like Game of Thrones. I've never seen it, and so it's like the first time I'm watching it for the it's
Okay.
really long. I've never really wanted to put that much time into a TV show. But what's really cool is to watch, and I think this is why we watch television. That's why we turn to entertainment, because there is such character development in that.
Mm.
It is a way for us to like go through that character development and not necessarily like really go through it.
Mm-hmm.
But um, that's what makes an incredible character. That's what
Mm.
makes a character worth reading about, worth watching, is that they've gone through a lot of like low things. They get stuck a lot.
Yeah.
And so I think for our life, at least at the end of mine, I want it to be a story that someone would want to read.
Mm.
Um, as far as like the unstuckness and the breath, I actually used to think when I first started doing breath work, I was like, I have found like a secret tool that anytime I ever get stuck, I'm just gonna pull myself right out of it, and I'm
Yeah.
gonna use breath work, and I'm gonna be unstoppable.
Yeah.
And as I've done this for like years now, I've realized like actually there's a value in actually
Mm.
staying stuck for a little bit.
Hmm.
There's value in carrying the capacity. Imagine if someone pisses me off and I'm
Mm.
like, oh, I'm so pissed off right now. And I'm like, I'm just going to turn to breath work. That's what I'm going to do. And I'm constantly trying to release or dump
Yeah.
out everything that's happening to me. I never build capacity to build up my cup. I never, if I'm constantly erasing the data, I never have an opportunity to
Mm.
fill up the card. So I think there's a real value in like holding and carrying a lot of hard things. And then when you're ready, then
Mm.
it's time to pour it out and
Mm.
fill it up with what you want. I see so many people, they've got a cup. The second it gets, like a little bit filled with frustration, overload, stress, they dump it
Mm.
out
Mm.
up again. And we're like balloons, mostly water.
Yeah.
And like a water balloon, if you just put a little bit of water and then you dump it out, you'll never get a water balloon. You have to keep filling it up. And that's how it can expand. Now, too far, nervous
It
breakdown,
popped.
it pops.
Yeah.
But there's an aspect of our resiliency and building and cultivating flexibility that lies like far beyond our muscle.
Mm.
Flexibility in our organs and our fascia and our nervous system in itself. Flexibility within our tissues, our actual systems, our digestive system. I believe that we can find flexibility in those, and that will actually relate to more capacity. And ultimately, that kind of answers your question a
Mm,
little bit indirectly, but that's how we can find ourselves getting unstuck, is to really focus. And using breathwork is one of the many tools we can do that with, but breathwork can allow for this type of flexibility. You're
mm,
absolutely right. I had this like throat thing that I saw so many doctors about, where food was kind of getting lodged in my throat when
mm,
I was stuck in my esophagus, not in my like windpipe, but it would just sit there for like
mhm,
40 minutes, very uncomfortable. It's almost like indigestion. And it would eventually drop and fall into my stomach. And I was like, what is that? And I saw lots of doctors about it, and they all had their, medications that I could take. I never experienced it again after my breath work.
mm,
I went so much of like a cathartic, like somatic release, a buildup, yelling, crying. I went through these emotional, if you will, roller coasters, and
mhm,
completed those cycles. And it was amazing to see some of the symptoms melt away. And
mm,
so I feel like if I could like put it into a phrase, breath work really focuses on the systems of the body rather
mhm,
than the symptoms of the
mm.
body. And I think that's why it's a great alternative to get to the root cause of what you're dealing with or what you're stuck with.
Mm. I love that. I have so much to say. It's so interesting that food is getting stuck in your throat, and then you're talking about when I released and when I screamed and when I used my voice, because throat chakra, right? That's a lot of times um, just noticing that connection of um, not using your voice, right? And then using your voice. Maybe there is some, maybe there wasn't, maybe there is some connection there.
Yeah, I'm sure there was. We don't get an owner's manual to this. And breathwork is the ability to like to not really have to know a lot about your body,
Ah,
because a car, like we're not all car mechanics. The public uses cars every single day as transportation. It's like one of our
yeah.
top parts of it, and none of us actually have a clue of how cars actually work. We just know
Mhm.
the key in, you turn it. We have no idea how airplanes take
Nope.
off. You just go, oh, I'm sure it's working. Okay, so
Yeah.
I'll take it and use this to transport me across the world. And that's kind of very similar to our bodies. Our bodies is a vehicle as well. And we don't
Mhm.
really know how to utilize it. A lot of scientists, a lot of
Mhm.
like doctors don't really even know everything there is to know about the body. It's quite complex. It's incredible technology. That being
Mhm.
said, breath work is kind of the, well, you don't have to know. Just
Mhm.
put the key in and start it up, put it in drive, and it kind of works on
Yeah.
itself. You need to know some of the bare minimum requirements of this user's manual to make it work.
Yeah. That's what I love. I think that's one of the things that really drew me into breath work, and that has been that I've kind of seen through my breath work journey is one thing that I explain. Sometimes I have a lot of downloads and like memories. So somatic breathwork, there's a lot of it's like very centered around trauma healing, and so sometimes we might have specific memories that pop up, specific images that kind of come to mind in our that we're able to visualize and return back to in a breathwork session. But one thing that I tell my clients all the time, just because I've experienced it and thought that it's interesting but so fucking cool, is it doesn't always have to be in your memory. You don't always have to know exactly what is going on, what your body is processing. So for example, there was one breathwork session where I was just like kind of shaking a lot.
Mhm.
For the first time, I hadn't really felt like I needed to like shake my body that much in a session. And I was shaking. And of course, like there's the like the mind does come in sometimes. So like there's a couple times where I was like, why am I shaking so much? Maybe I shouldn't be shaking so much. I'm like, yeah, it just feels good. Like just do it. Just allow yourself to do it. And no like nothing was coming up in my mind, like no like situation or whatever was coming up in my mind. And that is probably one of my favorite things about breath work, because I for me it gives me the invitation to trust that my body is smarter than I have capacity for to know. Our body's ability to heal and to process emotions, to process situations. Our bodies are so like our bodies are ancient. We've been alive, for forever, and our minds don't always can't always logic our way through or explain everything that our body might be moving through. um and that's probably one of my favorite things about breathwork is
Yeah.
I live so much, like I'm trained, I have a master's degree in a science field, and I'm trained in psychology, and I love sociology, and like I love learning how the brain works. And this has been such a fun journey to just be like, sometimes you don't need to know, and just
Yeah.
trust, build that trust muscle with your body.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, I relate it to the analogy I just used. Like if our body is the car, it is the
Right.
vehicle, and our mind is the driver. And a lot of times the driver
Mm,
doesn't have to know what's going on under the hood to
mm,
use and to get where they're going, to
yeah.
use this incredible tool for transportation, because our bodies are a transportation tool. They do a multitude of things, but they
Mm,
ultimately move us through life forwardly,
mm,
or moves us through. It's either life moving through us or we're moving through life. Either one,
mm,
probably the same happening at, both happening at the same time.
mm,
But ultimately, the body is moving forward. Life is moving forward. We're on a planet that's forward moving. So,
mm,
breath is a beautiful opportunity to slow things down and to feel
yeah.
into your body more, to get some answers that come from you, not
Yeah.
from someone else, not from a doctor, not from an outside source, not from a, as we call it, like a fix it mentality,
Yeah.
but from an opportunity to be like, hey, listen, where am I stuck? Where could I loosen up? The breath is like a small, like massaging. It's a
Mm,
small rhythmic motion that happens inside. It starts with the diaphragm, moves into the tissues and the fascia and the bone, and ultimately leads to like expressions
mhm,
surfacing within the body, which then leads to your ability to actually express yourself outwardly in your
mm,
life, which
mm,
then leads to your ability to express yourself in community with people. And that's really the great connection, because then ultimately we don't feel like we are alone. We feel like we have a tribe, and we have some individuals that are really can hold us. I felt very fortunate when I was going through that hard time. I didn't do it alone.
mhm,
I actually, I couldn't. I
mhm,
knew I was like, I can't do this. I happened to call a really good friend of mine who wasn't working, didn't have to go to, to work every single day, had a
yeah.
very different type of life. I called him, and I every day I was like, hey, can I come over? And I would
Mm,
come over and I would give him a hug, and I just would cry,
wow.
and he would just hold me. And I even told him, I was like, listen, would it be okay if I spend the night a couple of
Wow.
times? Like, I just don't want to be alone. He's like, for sure. And he let me made a little space for me, and I could sleep
Mm,
right there. It was close by. There was some nights like I'd wake up at 3 in the morning and just a wave of tears. And I would like go over to his bed and ask him if he could just hold me for a little bit. So all of
wow.
my tears were done while touching someone else, while I was
Mm,
holding someone else, while I was in the embrace of someone.
mm,
This is one of my best friends, another man. I to have that was what allowed me to like get through it. That breath work and my ability to know intrinsically that I needed to take space to integrate my life and to go to the national parks and to be held
mm,
by Mother Nature and to be in nature and to write love letters to myself,
mm,
to rebuild the man that I want to be moving forward, and to let go of the dying process of the man that I no longer was.
mm.
Process, but it's a beautiful one. And we don't have to do it alone. We can do it with others. We have
Yeah.
to.
We do. It's not, we're not meant. We're conditioned to do everything alone. Even if you look at American pregnancies, right? Like we are taught to, no, it's just you and your husband, and you have this baby, you go through the first 3 6 months all alone. But if you look at other cultures, even tribal cultures, that baby was not raised by just mom and dad. It had, I think other tribes actually have different words for like moms.
Yeah.
Like there's like your biological mother, but then I believe some tribes, like they call the other women in the tribe a different word for mom, um, because
Yeah.
we're created for tribe. And that was, I think, one of my biggest blessings that I got out of my dark time, was I used to hold the perspective that like I can do it all by myself, and I should do it all by myself because that's what strength is. And actually, it's reaching out for help, and it's recognizing that, yeah, I can do it by myself, but I don't need to, and I'm not created to move through, especially like dark times and dense emotions, by myself. And so thankfully, yeah, I mean, same with me. I was able to reach out, to a mentor, to an energy healer, to my best friends, to my family, and just seeing how they were able to meet me with such love and grace. I have a tattoo. If you're watching the YouTube video, I got this tattoo, and it's called, the writing, it says, "The beauty of grace is," and I got it after my breakup. But I got that tattoo as a reminder. And it's, "The beauty of grace is," and then there's dot dot dot, because one of the quotes that I had heard is, "The beauty of grace is that it makes life not fair." And the reminder that like life is cyclical and we go through hard times, and that's the beauty of it. But I couldn't even get the whole quote because I'm like, there's so much more in that. The beauty of grace is that when you're in your darkest time, God is always showing up. And whether you believe in God or not, you are always supported. And we're created to live this life together with each other. And the beauty of grace is that like when you reach out, you find these people, or you rediscover these people in your life that are here to support and love you. And they want to support and love you and hold you through whatever you're going through. I'm sure, without knowing your friend at all, I'm sure that it was such an honor for him to be able to hold that space for you, um, because that's who we are as humans. We're created for that.
Yeah. And it's
Mm,
something that we all have the power to do. It's a
yeah.
gift that we all give to each other, and it's really, really easy to do. It's
Mm,
pretty, you just look at prisoners in prison, like the most penalizing thing they can do is isolate them and put them like
mm,
cell by themselves or in the hole. Lots of words for it, but ultimately
mm-hmm.
that's so hard. And like the isolation of modern society that's happened as well. We all find ourselves in one home trying to raise a family,
Yeah.
isolated from our neighbors. We don't even know our neighbors
Yes.
in a lot of cases. So there's an aspect of like, yes, that's how life is, and then what can we do about that? And ultimately, I'm really hoping, because I feel like technology oftentimes is the opposite of nature, but I'm really hoping technology can get to a place where it actually can live with nature. It can emulate nature
Mm,
and really allow us to get back to what our bodies need. And
mm,
maybe even AI and robotics can come to a place where we're now able to, at an affordable way, to raise our children with a village. Because
yeah.
ultimately, I mean, I think most of it is just, it's like a financial thing. Like, who has the ability to have 6 or 7 people help
Yeah.
raising your child with you? Like, that's really expensive and really hard,
Right.
and you have to trust them. And so,
Yep.
if you can program AI and it can be an
Mm,
extension to this child can find themselves in the company of not just other individuals, but other individuals at different positions in their life. Because,
yeah.
having like someone who's the same age and having someone who's an elder, like all of that is just such a natural process for the learning of a
Mm-hmm.
child. I'm excited to see where technology can really help, if it does help in that area. That would be really, really special, and I think would make the world a better place.
I love your perspective on that because I'm very resistant to AI and a lot of technologies because I think that it's so distancing. But I love your perspective of let's use this tool and this power to for connection and in a new way rather than yes when we used to live like in tents and we were all together, you know, and we didn't have jobs that we were needed to work.
Yeah, and it's great to talk about all the things and get back in nature,
Yeah.
but those are practical.
Yeah.
They're not practical to this world.
Mm.
I mean, I know it's still true in many places in the world, but
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, we're like Westerners and, the modern society and civilization and where it's going, like for the majority of people, it's going towards technology. It's going to having
Mm-hmm.
like our own world on these phones, and
Mm-hmm.
sharing our cyborgs in a lot of ways already tapped into the interwebs. So
Mm.
there becomes an aspect of like, okay, let's start asking the question, how do we move forward progressively without having to go back? Because
Yeah.
we're not going back. We're not going to spend time with nature. We're not going to stop watching TV. That's just
Mm-hmm.
not happen. It's not.
Mm-hmm.
And but how can we find a place where technology can move us into a state of regulation? Like
Mm-hmm.
meaning nature does something to us. It does
Mm-hmm.
something to our physiology.
Mm-hmm.
How can we, maybe even through VR, how can we
Mm-hmm.
emulate that so we can get back to a state of regulation? Breathwork is one of the many ways to do it, but
Yeah.
there's a multitude of ways I hope technology can step in and do that too. And that will probably have to be led by conscious leaders and conscious collectiveness that wants to improve the world and knows in the direction it's heading and doesn't just decide to like live off the grid and remove themselves from society, but rather
Mm.
take up a strong call to build a new adaptive pattern with the tools that are in front of us now.
Mm.
And really like, I mean, breathwork's been around forever. It's like ancient, but there's
Mm.
a re-initiation that needs to happen. And I think
Mm.
I feel very, very honored to be a part of that, to
Mm.
bring breathwork to the masses in a modern way that
Yeah.
is effective and also helps others.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're part of such a beautiful journey. And I think I've already thanked you in person, but thank you for bringing this beautiful tool and modality to the world and to people because I've only seen, you know, the cohort that I've walked through, the change that it's made in their lives, and then my clients, the change that it's made in their lives, and the change that it's made in my life. And there, it's just such a powerful tool to that I feel so honored to now be able to guide other people and introduce other people to. And that's really a huge thanks to you for going on your journey and stepping into your authenticity and your purpose of sharing this beautiful tool with the world and with me.
Yeah,
So thank you
thank
for
you.
that.
I
Yeah.
appreciate you. I
Yeah.
totally received that. And also know like if I didn't, then someone else would. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
uh, great things need to surface. And
Mm.
yeah, it's like a vehicle, like same thing. Like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
this idea needs to be like put out to the world. Would you like to step up and usher it in for now?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yes, that would be a great honor because I see it
Mm-hmm.
as a gift
Yeah.
and a gift that can be re-gifted
Yeah.
over and over again. And that's really like it was given to me. I
Mhm.
was like, hey, you should check this out. It's a gift to you. You
Mhm.
re-gifted it. It will continuously be re-gifted. And that's a ripple effect that
Yeah.
at the end of our lives, it won't even be a metric we can measure, but we'll
Mhm.
know that it made a big difference in a lot of people's lives. And
Yeah.
how much,
It has.
I mean, well, what more can you ask for in life than
Yeah.
serve and help others?
Yeah. So this leads me to my last question, and then I want to talk human design because we end every episode talking about human design, and I would love to human design you. But my last question is, you may or may not have this, but in a somatic breathwork session, if you haven't been through one, whoever's listening, we normally ask what is a one word intention that you'd like to set for this session.
Mm,
So for you, my question is, do you have, what's a one word intention for your life that you want
yeah,
to give back, that you, how you want to show up in this world, how you want others to perceive you, how you want to walk through
yeah,
your world?
yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Uh, Currently, and it's
Yeah.
always in flux, but my
Yes.
current word is really actually structure because
Mm.
I need discipline.
Mm.
I am a Sagittarius and I love jet setting. And with the golf world, I went to like 94 countries. I've seen a lot of this external world. Never had opportunities to explore my own internal countries. Hadn't visited
Mm.
like one country. My passport had 0 stamps in it when it came to my internal world.
Mm. Love that.
So for me, it is, especially in the beginning, it was quite the challenge to have to stay put. You want to build something, you got to be on site. It requires grounding because you're doing groundwork. And
Wow.
so I needed to stay put. I didn't travel at all last
Mm.
year. And that was really, well, I thought it was going to be devastating to my soul.
Mm.
It was harder than I thought, but those were also stories. And I sat with them and I realized, like, okay, you've seen a lot of the world already. How did that change you?
Mm.
Have you sat still long enough to usher in and build something that can help potentially like hundreds of thousands of people? Have you ever
Yeah.
done that? And
Yeah.
I was like, oh no, no, I've never done that. So it requires a different type of jet setting.
Mm.
It requires a different type of finding freedom within my life.
Mm.
And that comes from structure because now I'm dealing with time as
Yeah.
my commodity. And really my calendar, I have this, it's called like big ass calendar. It's kind of an interesting thing. I don't know if you can hear that outside. It's like South by
No.
Southwest going off. Okay, great.
You're good.
There's this giant calendar. It's not in my frame of reference here, but it actually has 365 days listed out in front of you, like visually, so you can see it all. There's no
Wow.
flip, it was right there. And to go through and metric out every single day and to know what I'm doing is the opposite of the type of human that I've been.
Ah.
But I'm actually like, well, I'm a new person and I'm a new human and I'm striving to actually find grace, flow, and ease, not just through travel, but actually through
Mm.
structure as well.
Mm.
Structured my life out to a place where I actually have a lot of predictability, which I was like, that's a
Mm.
boring life. I don't want
Ah.
predictability. But I also now realize how much safety my body feels knowing what's happening for the day and
Yeah.
the safety that it provides for the people in my life,
Mm.
the safety it provides for the the team of somatic when I tell
Mm.
them this is where I'm going to be and this is where you can catch me and this way you can,
Mm.
you don't have to work this day, we're taking a day off. They now have structure. They can implement
Mm.
structure in their life. And they're not wondering when I'm going to hit them up out of the blue. They know that I'm going
Mm.
to reach out at 3 o'clock. It
Mm.
just gave safety
Yeah.
to the entire team and into myself, and ultimately will ripple into the modality as well, in the
Yeah.
business, the company
Yeah.
culture, and all those things. So
It all
a new
starts.
adaptive pattern.
Say it
Yeah.
again.
It's just a new adaptive pattern for me. Structure is a new
Yeah.
adaptive pattern I'm trying to learn.
I love that. It all starts at the top. One of the things that I love about astrology and human design, because I utilize both modalities, um, I think oftentimes one maybe misconception about human design and astrology is it puts us in this box. And when we learn about, just like outwardly, when we learn about Sagittarius or I'm a Leo,
Yeah,
we're just talking about sun signs here. Um,
sure.
we have these um, preconceived notions or stereotypes of Sagittarius, of Leo. So Sagittarius, yes, is the traveler of the zodiac. It's represented by the centaur, so really strong legs, but wanting, horse legs, but wanting to travel the zodiac, travel the world. I met a Sagittarius. One of my mentors is a Sag sun, and one of the most like beautiful things that she's ever told me about Sagittarius is she's like, what I realized about myself is I'm actually not a physical traveler. I don't like to travel physically. It's kind of creates this anxiety in me. It's a lot. I would much rather be home. And she said, but what I do is I travel in my mind. I stationarily travel. And that's kind of how I see you right now, is you've spent so much time doing maybe the stereotypical Sagittarius thing of traveling the world with the PGA Tour, but you are still traveling so much. You are still learning so much. You are still, I mean, like, think about how many people you're reaching just with somatic breathwork, not even your being and your other life, the other lives that you lead, the other titles that you hold. Just with somatic breathwork, you're traveling to Canada, you're traveling to Kenya, you're traveling to the UK, to England, like you're traveling everywhere over the fucking US, everywhere. So I love that. I wanted to share that with you because when you were talking earlier about traveling, I was like, no, you're still traveling, Fish.
I love it. And that's a great frame of reference for me to really hold on to, because I think
Yeah.
that our lives are perspective driven, and to
Yes.
ultimately change someone's perspective, you indirectly change their life. And so I
Yeah.
am fully grabbing a hold of that, and I will, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm taking that frame of reference. Thank you for that. Thank you for the
Yeah.
reflection.
Yeah. I love it. So let's close with human design brief conversation. I like astrology, like I was saying. It Astrology, having a conversation about astrology and human design is not to put ourselves in a box. It's actually to expand the boxes that we have previously put ourselves in. So human design has been such an incredible tool for me, like breathwork, and I just feel called to share it with anyone that has not heard about human design, which I love that you knew about it, because I was like, send me your birth time and all this weird information. You're like, nope, I'm a generator. I'm a 5-1 generator. So I want to know first what that means to you, what it did to learn about generators, to learn about if you know the 5-1 profile. And then I have something interesting that I wanted to share with you.
Yeah, two things on that. First, outwardly, because I definitely see the world very outwardly, I was like,
Mm.
who else outwardly that I can see and connect with that is this same profile? So like I Googled celebrities that are 5-1 profile, like
Okay.
Eastwood came up. I was like, oh, he's a badass. That's cool. Ultimately, we do that with our zodiac as well. I'm like, oh yes, Taylor Swift or Brad Pitt. We pick the people, we cherry pick the people we like, and we like put aside the people we don't. Britney Spears and I share a birthday, so it's one of these things where it's fun to see, like, hey, what other celebrities
Mm.
am I like? So
Hmm.
there is this compare aspect
Hmm.
to it. So the first thing is I Googled like what celebrities were my profile to learn more about who they were and how they
Mm.
lived their life, to like really see if it resonated with me.
Right.
Um, and secondly, like I've used it really beautifully. It's helped me so much, but ultimately one of the things especially is um, to find out what kind of, like, I'm an emotional authority, like meaning like
Hmm.
I found out that it's really better for me to wait on decisions
Yeah.
and to really like, let it settle. So
Mm.
I've implemented that. Like when there's a big
Mm.
decision in the company, I don't actually make it that day. I actually call
Mm.
one and I'm like, listen, I need all the data, but even more importantly than the data, I need to just be, I need to let things kind of just, I need to let the storm pass. I need to let things
Mm.
calm. And then I'm going to make a decision about what direction I think is going to be best for us
Wow.
collectively and somatic as a whole. And so I even believe, honestly, I believe businesses even have their own human design. It would be
Hmm.
really a smart kind of business model, in my opinion, to be like, when did you birth somatic, or when did the idea of be birthed inside of you? And then based on that, it would give your own understanding of what that business wants to be in the world. It's its
Wow.
own entity. Like, this is a little off topic, but somatic is not broken down into departments. It's actually broken down into anatomy systems, anatomical systems that work together to make this holistic being function, from like
Hmm.
digestion to like immunity to the nervous system to the
Hmm.
respiratory system. In each one of our so-called departments, there are people that are in those systems. So
Wow.
like happens in the nervous system. Like our legal team is in the immunity system, because it's mainly protection, and
I
protecting your
love
acts,
that.
and so I'm respiratory, because I try to bring breath and life to every single part of the body, the company. And so ultimately, we broke it all down. It was really beautiful. I mean, ultimately, somatic, this is a little side also, but somatic is soma meaning body, the T is a plus, and IQ meaning mind,
Hmm.
your intelligence. So body and mind interwoven together to form our company name, which is somatic with a Q. So it's just, yeah, it's all right there. I
Hmm.
really think that the emotional authority piece has really helped me learn how to not just be a better leader for somatic, but how to make
Hmm.
decisions in my own life around the things that are most important to me as well.
Hmm. I love that. And thank you so much for sharing that, because generators and manifesting generators make up about 70% of the population. And a lot of times, what we talk about is to be a manifesting generator or a generator, you have a defined sacral center. So you have that like immediate full body yes, no response. However, there's always a caveat that we don't talk about, is if you're an emotional authority, yes, you might still have that immediate full body yes, no response, but emotional authorities, exactly what you said, you do very well to wait and not respond based off of an emotion. I always like to, with emotional authorities, I always think of it as like if you're having a fight with someone, reacting versus responding. And
Yeah.
emotional authorities can very much react in the moment. And it would behoove you to take that pause and just check yourself. Am I reacting or am I responding? And I love how you use the analogy of let the storm pass, let the emotional wave come, and then allow the seas to calm for a moment, and then check in with yourself again. Is
Yeah.
this a full body yes? Is this a full body no?
And it correlates back to what I said originally, which essentially was, how much can you hold? Because
Yeah.
when you can't hold much, you react. When you're able to hold
Yes.
tremendous capacity, you're then able to respond. And so, based on what I said before, it's like not about just having a breathwork session every single time something like really triggers you.
Yeah.
It's the opportunity to be able to hold that. And so, it's really helpful in a place of business to be a CEO of a company, to be able to handle a lot of information, to not react,
Yeah.
to wait. Like I always, like, to me, a response is a delayed reaction. To me,
I love
it's
that.
yeah. When you wait, then it's a response.
Huh.
When you react, then it's coming just from a very like triggered place,
Yeah.
most of the time. And I
Yeah.
love the little acronym WAIT, like, why am I talking? It's always great to say wait
Mm-hmm.
on something that is important. And
Mm-hmm.
then, why am I talking? Take some space, take some silence. For some, it's prayer. For others,
Yeah.
maybe it's a work. Maybe it's a transcendental meditation, whatever it may be. Maybe it's a walk in the park. around nature barefoot,
Mm.
whatever it is for you. It could be all those things,
Mm-hmm.
and respond. And I think that that's how at least I have earned a lot of the respect and rapport from my team, because I don't react on them.
Yeah.
I'm very responsible. Whatever they tell me, no matter what went down,
Mm.
we take some time from it, from the situation. We regather, come back together, and by then it's almost gone. There's nothing
Mm-hmm.
left but like love and grace.
Mm.
It really feels good to just let space be the ultimate healer.
Mm. Yeah. Thank you. One of my things that I appreciate, what's a better word than appreciate? Hmm. One of the things that I just love so much about you, and I recognize it in like the first 5 minutes that you spoke during our somatic breathwork in-person training, is you have these like one-liners, and they're just so wise, and they hold so much. I think maybe I appreciate it in you because I am a talker. I have to talk for a while to then come to the one line. And I used to think that like I used to hate that about myself, and now I'm just like, this is just who I am. And one of the reasons I started this podcast is because I was like, I can't have a 30-second reel. I make tons of reels, but I don't want to have a 30-second reel. I want to have a 45-minute conversation with someone and really dive into all of it. But you have so many poignant, powerful one-liners that hold so much wisdom. And that was actually one of the reasons I told you before we hit record, I would have bet money that you were a projector, because I was like, he's just so wise. He holds so much wisdom. And I appreciate you. I appreciate that about you very much. And I don't know if anyone's ever told you that. So I wanted to tell you that before we ended. But I hope that you're one of those people that I feel like when I'm listening to you talk, I need a notebook, and I just need to make notes of what you say. During the training, I had a notebook, obviously. So one of the most like beautiful things that you said was, and I wrote it down. It's you were talking about Stephen gave you permission, and that was the greatest gift. Stephen Jaggers is the other co-founder. That was the greatest gift that Stephen gave you. And then you said permission is to believe in someone. And then
Yeah.
you explained that. But there's just so many one-liners that I think that you
Yeah.
should write a book of just one-liners.
I appreciate you like fishisms.
Yes, exactly. I was like, no, yeah, that's what we talked about, right? In the training. I'm like, I support that. I vote yes.
I thank you for that.
Yeah.
I actually think that we all have that. I actually really do.
Wow.
If we have the ability to hold, you
Mm,
said it, like, yeah, it's like you hold so many pieces of wisdom. I think we all do.
mm,
Are you able to slow down and to let them surface? Like
mm,
so much talking, and we're saying so many things. And I don't think, and I'm guilty of it, of course, but I don't think we're very intentional about
mm.
what we're saying. Because a lot of times we are verbal processors. We've learned how to
Yeah.
maybe not even process our emotions from like a somatic level. And since that hasn't happened, we've learned to do it like verbally.
Mm,
Means we're just like kind of word vomiting on so many people just to get it out. And then we
mm,
can piece it together and make sense of it. But it has to be out so that we can then
mm.
piece it like a puzzle. And for me, I'm like, what if you hold it? What if you hold it inside?
Wow.
Then what happens?
Mm,
With no desire to get it out.
mm,
Then it sits in silence. It kind of maybe ferments. It like
mm,
ages itself. I mean, that's really what wisdom is. It's
mm.
it's like finely aged thoughts. They've had the time to sit in your body. I mean, hence the word embody.
Mm.
The things that you speak about are the things that you don't carry with you. You're getting them
Wow.
out. The things that you don't say are the things that stay with you, that stay inside you. And every now and again, it's important to just state them just once in a while. It's like saying I love you so many times that it loses its potency.
Yeah.
But saying it when you really mean it, that's where the value is. I think we all have it if we had the if worked on the skill set of holding on to
Mm.
what we are working with within our head
Mm.
and really allowing ourselves to titrate it, distill it down to the most simplest form, because that's really like we call this wisdom when we're able to
Mm-hmm.
take something that we really like is elongated and simplify it. And we
Yeah.
call that wisdom, whether it is or not. It's really more of just a simplification process. These one-liners
Mm.
aren't just, yeah, there's things that have taken time to wash away the unimportant words that
Mm.
oftentimes get in the way of the meaning of what's trying to be conveyed.
Hmm. I love that. I love that. Thank you for coming on. Is there
Of course.
anything that you'd like to end with? Any last thoughts? Anything that you kind of were marinating as you were thinking about coming on this podcast that you wanted to say that you didn't yet?
Yeah, I think just a reiteration because I'm going to start going in on my Instagram a little bit more. And a reiteration of like my motto moving forward is just slowing it down to feel it more is just
Mm.
a really important phrase. I'm going to continue to like make that my mantra for a while.
Mm.
My Instagram will be an account not designed for myself, but designed for others. An
Mm.
Instagram account that is for those who need a moment to slow down,
Mm.
to just take a breath, to maybe go through like a little somatic practice or a guided meditation. Um,
Mm.
and realize that everything that you do is an offering. And
Mm.
when you can even make your words that you say a gift and
Mm.
an offering to someone else, like that's really what this is all about. Like when you speak, do you speak for yourself or do you speak for others?
Wow.
When you speak, do you speak to yourself or do you speak to others?
Mm.
And so that's what really I want the remaining days of my life to be is a life dedicated in the service of others so that a lot of things that I'm saying are directly being spoken to someone outside of
Mm.
myself because that's
Mm.
the person that will carry it on
Mhm.
until until my ultimate integration.
I love that. Slow it down. Feel it more. I love that. Beautiful. Well, you are tagged below in the description. Your Instagram will be tagged. Where can people find you if they don't want to look at the description? Where do you hang out the most? I assume Instagram.
Yeah. Yeah. Instagram is a great networking app for me. I don't
Yeah.
really spend a lot of time scrolling on it, which is
Mm.
amazing. I do spend a lot of time on the back end. I always say
Mm.
Instagram's front end is about showing off, which is still good. You need to tell people what
Mhm.
you're doing. It's important. But the back end is about showing up.
Mm.
And that's where I respond to DMs. I do a lot of like quick video responses that are much more personal and build an entire community on there. Um, it's not just saying that your life is about others. It's showcasing that.
Mm.
That's really like a lot of the things on my Instagram. Majority of it's done on the back end. It's not seen by the world.
Yeah.
That's okay. So
Yeah.
that's the best way to reach me from a like a communication standpoint.
Mhm.
Definitely have a YouTube channel, and then of course all the somatic breathwork channels as well to like learn more about our trainings and
Mhm.
what we want to do and what we want to deliver and what we want to give to the world so that you can gift it to others.
Mm.
Is all found. Somatic Release on Instagram and also somaticbreathwork.com on the internet.
On the
So
interwebs.
yeah, interwebs,
Thank
internet,
you.
all the things.
Thank you so much, Fish. This was such a beautiful conversation. Thank you for your time. I know, like, that's one of the things that I say a lot too, but I know it's very important to you is time is a commodity, and we only have so much time. So thank you for taking this time. I appreciate it, and all of the words of wisdom I know are held so much in everyone that is listening to this. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for your time, because
Mm.
no one's time is worth more than anyone else's. And
Mm.
so for you to actually take your time out is an equal exchange. And I appreciate you. Thank you for having me on.